Good evening, everybody. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the notice requirements have been satisfied. Meeting dates for the year are confirmed at the annual meeting. Are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Copies of all revised or additional meeting notices are sent via fax to the record, Suburbanite and Northern Valley Press, and are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center. Just a reminder, today, as all our meetings are now, is a combined meeting. We start out here with a work session, then we break for a public meeting. Quite often it's in there. Tonight we're not going to go in it?
We're going in there.
We're going in there?
We're going.
We're not staying here.
Huh?
We're not staying here.
We're not staying here?
Why?
Read your agenda and you'll find out.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. So it's cookies.
Yeah, we're going into the other room for public meeting, at which time public comment will be taken. So without further ado, we have Boy Scout Troop 86 here, Citizenship Merit Badge, and I don't have any paperwork on that.
Yes.
What do we mean by that? Who put that on the agenda?
So I put it on the agenda, and the Boy Scouts had some questions, and they could choose to either ask them now if you want to do it in the midst of the meeting, or after the meeting, whatever you're comfortable with.
Well, let's do it now.
Let's do it now.
Now? Okay.
There's
Absolutely.
No reason why they and us have to stay late.
Guys, questions?
I only ask that if you're going to speak at this meeting, you need to state your name for the record. These are being recorded, not only audio, but you'll be able to see yourself on channel 77. And just in case you say something brilliant, the audience will want to know who's saying it.
So I'm scared now. This is being recorded.
Smile at the camera.
So who's got a question?
A lot of people watch.
Grayson, you had a suggestion today.
Yeah.
So
Stand up.
stand up and give us your name and where you live.
I'm Grayson Law. I live on 13 Tenafly Court. I had a suggestion that we put a bike rack outside of Stop and Shop, because I've seen many bikes outside of Stop and Shop, and since there's no bike rack, we would all just have to have our bikes lying around outside where they could be stolen.
Absolutely, that's a great idea.
Where do you suggest?
The only problem.
At Stop and Shop, yeah.
The only problem with that is the
private
mall is
property?
private property. What I will do is I will speak to the store manager, who is relatively new, and seems like a very good guy, a cooperative man, and ask him if Stop and Shop would like to donate a bike rack. Then the next question, nothing is easy today. The next question is, where do you put it? Because you don't want to put it somewhere will interfere with people walking. So we'll get those two questions answered. Would they donate a bike rack, and where we would put it? And that would be something we might have to ask the fire inspector, Tony, who would want to.
Where would we put a bike rack at Stop and Shop is the question.
I mean, the police chief, who would be the arbiter as to where we could put it in a safe place, so it wouldn't interfere with vehicular or pedestrian traffic.
Probably both.
Okay. So it's a great idea. So I will take the first step and speak to the store manager, and if he's willing, if Stop and Shop is willing to do that, fine. If not, we could always go to the mall owner, but I don't know. They just spent a lot of money renovating the mall. The next step may be to do a fundraiser, or we could even ask the bike shop. We have 2 bike shops in this town. Maybe one of them would be willing to donate it. I tell you what we'll do. If Stop and Shop is not willing to do it, we'll go back to you, and maybe somebody from your troop could approach either or both of the bike shops and see if one of them would be willing to donate it. I know we recently put a bike rack over by the bus shelter. It only took us about 3 years to get it done? But we got it done, and now it's being used, and it's a great idea. Thank you. Any other good ideas or questions? Good questions?
Go ahead, stand up.
I'm James Lev. So my idea for the town was, many other northern New Jersey towns are doing it, is to put to turn the old railroad tracks that aren't in use, to turn it into a bike trail as
Fantastic.
as part of the Tracks to Trails initiative thing.
We never thought of anything like that. Actually, you're a little late.
I know.
We are in the middle of that process now.
Yeah, I heard that you're in the middle of it, but I haven't actually seen any construction.
Oh,
on
no,
it.
no, no, we are far from the
I know,
construction
I mean,
stage.
like, I was wondering if like you thought about it and then you kind of just forgot about it, so I'm.
We never forget,
No,
we just don't do it.
Comparing this to the Bike Rack at Stop and Shop, it's a little more complicated. We have to
So-
deal with CSX, we have to deal with 6 or 7 other towns because we want this, what are we calling it, the Greenway, Christine?
Green.
Northern Valley
Rails and
Greenway.
trails.
We're hoping that this trailway will go all the way from Tenafly up to the New York State border and connect with a trailway that's up there. So people will have an opportunity to walk, jog, or bike a great distance.
So is there anything that youth, like kids like my age or them can do to help with this?
Well,
This-
there may be a point in time where a letter from Boy Scouts would be helpful. And Christine, maybe you could get some contact of Christine Evron is one of the people that's heavily involved in this committee, and it's a committee with 6 other towns. But
So
it's-
what would I actually be able to do? So you're saying I should write a letter to help with this?
Well, at this point, I'm not sure we would know where to send the letter.
Mayor,
But-
Alright.
there's a vote, is the vote still happening for the funding?
No, they're apparently going to announce the winners.
Oh, okay, I thought otherwise
soon.
the Boy Scouts
It's
could
too
go
late
and
to vote, though, right?
Yeah,
It is too late
sadly.
to
Okay.
vote.
We're in
contacted
competition
them.
for a rather large grant, which will be doled out on the basis of a vote, an internet vote. So for
Right, so
for
we're-
quite a few months, we were encouraging people to vote for our project, which is competing against other projects for
So
the same
I'm too
money.
late to vote for that?
Too late.
Yeah, it is, I'm sorry, but we might have to find another. We're not gonna.
But thank you for that suggestion. Any
So-
support we can get will be
What
very helpful.
support can I give? Because what would the letter be about? Just
The letter would be from a Boy Scout troop, and you might want to talk about the goals of scouting, which is outdoor, healthy activity.
so kind of as a persuasive letter to try to persuade them.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
In addition, getting some of the bikers off unsafe areas such as 9W where there's accidents and getting them onto a path that is conducive to safe biking, and it's a great activity for a town. Anybody else have
Anything
any
else?
ideas?
Questions?
So far, we got 2 very good ideas.
Adam did have a question.
Okay.
It's Adam Lev, and he's concerned about the number of forests that have been, or trees that have been cut down for new development, new housing. Is
Well-
there more in the future, he'd like to know?
Well, the first thing
Why
I
does
would,
this keep happening?
I would suggest that he stay, because the 4th item on our agenda is our tree planting protocols. Okay, we have our director of DPW/Parks Department here, our borough engineer, and there's going to be a discussion about trees. I would tell you this, that we have a very relatively strict tree ordinance. When I say relatively strict, if you're a real tree lover, it might not be strict enough. But compared to other towns, our ordinance has been used in many cases as a model ordinance for other towns. And once again, when you talk about trees, most of the trees in this community that are getting cut down are on private property. And the discussion is the rights of the property owner to cut a tree down versus the rights of the community to keep somebody's tree that's on their property. And there's no real answer to that. It's a matter of how you feel about things and working out a compromise. But believe it or not, despite the fact that you see a lot of trees being cut down, we have a very strict ordinance. However, it was more strict once, and a number of years ago, the council voted to reduce the requirements because developers and homeowners felt they were too onerous. So it's a very tough situation, especially in a fully developed community such as Tenafly. When people knock down a small house and want to build a bigger house on their property, trees are usually the victims. And so once again, do you allow a property owner to do that? Or does the community tell a property owner you can't cut down that tree in your backyard or alongside your house? Very, very tough situation. And of course, if you cut down a tree and plant a new tree, you're cutting down a big tree and you're planting a small tree, because it's almost impossible to plant a fully grown tree. So maybe when you get a little older and you're sitting in these chairs, you'll come up with a better answer.
No trees cut.
No trees cut down. You've spoken like a guy that doesn't have any future development plans.
Absolutely.
Any other questions from anyone?
We got another young man.
Go ahead.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
So,
State your name.
so my name's Andrew Zhang.
Okay.
So me and our parents were concerning that, like, the high school, there's some people, like, doing drugs and stuff like that.
Doing
Drugs.
Drugs.
drugs, yes.
And, like, smoking cigarettes and stuff like that. So we were, like, very worried about it. So we think that we should, like, do something about it.
What do you suggest?
I suggest that, like, we should take, like, different, like, I know we've been, like, teaching methods, like, teaching students and stuff, but we need to, like, take, like, different methods to solve this problem. And, like, you know, like people, like, doing, like, I heard, like, my mom saying, like, oh, there's, like a class to reduce stress. And, like, I feel like we need, like, different ways. We need to, like, we need to scare the students that drugs are, to scare the students so they would think that drugs is really bad. So they will, like, never, like, touch drugs.
Well, when you leave Borough Hall tonight, if you go to the right and past the fire department, I believe there's still a car that looks like a junk heap over in the parking lot next to the firehouse. That car was used in a demonstration what the police put on, or maybe it was fire, I don't know, with the high school students to teach them what happens when you drive drunk. Now, you can't scare people more than that when you show people a car accident, which is going to be fatal in most cases. I know the schools have brought in professional people that give talks. I remember a couple of years ago seeing a former NFL football player who lost his career to drugs. He had long hair, came in torn jeans. This was his guy, and he talked to the students about what happens if you let substance abuse take control of your life. And it was a very powerful speech. So they are trying to, for lack of a better term, scare people into going straight. But a lot of stuff starts at home. So if your parents are teaching you the right way to do it and you're getting the message, they're doing a good parenting job. You should be very proud and consider yourself very fortunate. And the other questions or comments or ideas? I would tell you this, as somebody who has the honor and the privilege and the pleasure of attending the Eagle Scout Courts of Honor, which is where the Scouts get to the highest level that they can get. There is a great deal of respect for you guys and the girls that go through Scouting, because you have so many other options with your lives to do different things, whether it be sports or music or just not doing the right things. So I know I speak for the members of the council as well. We truly appreciate your efforts in Scouting. We truly appreciate and want to thank the parents that organized and supervised these troops, because without you folks, the troops wouldn't exist. And I'm pleased to know that Scouting is alive and well in Tenafly. We have a couple of very active troops, and that's much to your credit. And we thank you for being Boy Scouts, and we wish you well in your Scouting careers. And don't give it up. It's really a worthwhile activity. Anybody like to add anything? Mark,
I have a
thank you.
question,
Thanks for
Mark.
coming in tonight.
Mark,
Yes,
citizenship merit badge, what is, there's no explanation about it.
that's what they're here for tonight. This is all part of how
Part
they
of getting
earn.
that badge?
That's correct, that's
Wow.
correct.
Okay. And where the trees are concerned, there are a lot of environmental issues that you can think about and maybe work on, even at the lowest level, whether it's cleaning out the brook or picking up litter or just trying to identify some of the issues and creating slogans and signage which would encourage adults to do a better job. So there's lots of things you can do.
If they did want to go and clean out the brook, would they need to get permission from somebody to do that, or could they just spend an hour
Well, the brook is really belongs to the municipality, so you would best be served if you come in and just let us know what you're going to do. I don't think you'll meet with any resistance.
Organize that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Municipal turf field replacement, Jewel?
As you're aware, our turf field at Municipal Field is past its sell
Oh, yeah,
date.
it's past its useful life. I don't know about that.
And we have begun the process of moving towards replacement. We put a allocation which you authorized in the 2017 capital budget for the actual turf replacement. As we begin to plan and design, there will be some additional costs, some of which we would hope to complete in the 2018 capital budget. And because the project is a little bit more complex than simply taking up and laying down turf, invited Andy tonight to just give you an overview of, I guess, the full scope of the project and what it entails.
Sure, so the project entails basically three parts. The first part is purchase your turf and get it delivered, because there's co-ops that allow you to do that. And those co-ops bid nationally, so they allow you to get a very good price per square foot, almost $1 savings per square foot than if you do it yourself. The second part is to bid your removal of your existing turf and the install, which includes the disposal of that turf, so that has a pretty large number associated with it. And then your site, we walked it today with the recreation director, myself, Bob, and the recreation director. The site needs some upgrade to its amenities. Its fencing has some issues. Some of your lines in the field don't meet your current needs because the field was installed a number of years ago. And then you just need some additions. If you go onto that field, there's grass areas that surround that field that are kind of become a big maintenance problem for you. We'd recommend either turfing those areas too within the fence lines, or putting some other surface down, like concrete by the dugouts, to kind of reduce wear and take away the maintenance associated with not having turf there, because the turf limits your maintenance. So what we propose is the project would be constructed in August of 2018, so you have time to plan it. What we'd like to do is get you some estimates which build everything I just told you and gives you some choices across the board, probably by the end of July or for your August meeting. And then we could have an open conversation, then you could budget it accordingly for your 2018 budget year, whatever money you need to finish the project, and go from there.
Because that process begins in September.
I know, you're there.
Those people that may be watching or in the room that don't know, Andy Hippolyte is our borough engineer, and Bob, who he's referring to as Bob Culvert, our director of DPW and Parks. And they work together very well for the benefit of our town.
Correct. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Yes. For the specific turf, we were expecting first the report from EPA to define if those turfs are carcinogen or not. There are so many complaints about these turfs which are filled with carbon particles, and there are unscientific reports about individual cases of cancer, and the EPA was supposed to come up in February with their final report to define if those turfs are carcinogen or not. So before we spend, we should put it in the budget, but before we start spending, we should get this report to understand, so we don't expose our people to anything that might be dangerous. So that's the only thing I want to add.
Address that?
I don't think so. I mean, you know, the federal government has talked about putting a report out.
Did they actually come out with it yet?
They haven't, and we can get into a bigger discussion on it. But the issue is the synthetic turf is everything you use in your everyday life. So everything you use in your normal day life, whether it's rubber or the fibers in your carpet, it's a very controversial topic. I'm not the expert in it. I know by being in the engineering world, it's very controversial, because if they say that the synthetic turf outside causes cancer, they're opening you up to your whole entire house having the same problem, because you use these products in your house.
It's not the synthetic turf per se, but the fillers that they use in those specific outdoor synthetic fur, which are recycled, basically rubber and carbon. Those are the issues. You don't have that in your synthetic turf in your home. When you buy one of those, you don't use that fillers. So that's the issue, and we should understand that.
10 sneakers is everything you move every day. It's not.
Is there a vendor who would be ahead of the EPA study? Just
So, I mean, this is a really difficult conversation in that the people who produce the infills, and there's lots of infills from organic all the way down to rubber. Every time the claim comes out nationwide about a issue, cancer, whatever it may be, the various states perform studies right away. So every time you get a claim, there's always a follow-up study, and those follow-up studies have always determined that the claim was irrelevant or not true. Again, I'm not your expert. I don't want to argue with you. I just, you need to be careful. That, you know, I have, and I will eventually produce it for you. There are, you know, because of this issue, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different alternative infills you can use. All of them have pluses and minuses. Some are cost, some are the types of materials they use. Again, everything you see in these fields, like the infill, they make infill that's made of ground up rubber tires and ground up sneakers. I mean, the mayor's got sneakers on. You wear them every day. So if they say that ground up sneakers cause cancer, there's a bigger issue outside your turf field. I'm not saying you should put...
With one exception, you don't breathe your sneakers while you play soccer. You drop and fall and you breathe that stuff.
You know, I'm not, my goal is not to argue the points here. I'm not the scientific expert on whether it causes cancer or not, nor am I ever going to be. That's not my role.
You know, and I don't want to argue with you, Max,
Exactly.
either. However, what appears to me is, look, every time a claim is made, you get, there's been no decision that these claims have any validity, number one. Number two is the government has failed, despite many promises, to come out with a study for or against it. So at this particular point, there really is no scientific basis for these claims, for or against. So I'm not sure where you know, Andy's trying to be very, very diplomatic and saying he can't give you the answers because nobody has produced the answers.
The only answers out there are, there's been a number of claims over the last year and a half, and it's instituted various state health departments to investigate it. And I think there's like 10 states already who have cleared it. That's not the federal government, but there's 10 state health departments that have cleared it already in various states.
And we're not starting from scratch.
No, you're not starting
We've
from
had
scratch.
a field for 13 years.
Yeah.
Right.
And you got your high school house.
Okay, let's move on.
Dog park?
Next topic, which I'm sure Dan is appreciative of, as I am, and all dog owners in Tenafly will be.
And you have
is-
a package.
Is a dog park. We have identified a location that seems suitable. Of course, the major decision that we have to face first is, are we going to approve this location as a location for a dog park? Once we get past that hurdle, if we do, then the next hurdle is, you know, to put together specs for a dog park. The specs that were given to us, I thought were a little on the high side.
Little?
I mean, you are so modest.
A discussion with the borough engineer, who basically said, well, a good part of this work could probably be done by the DPW, and there's a lot of bells and whistles in here as well, which may or may not be things that we want to do. My suggestion to the council is, if we approve this location, and I think it's as good a location we're ever going to find, the next step would be to look at alternative funding. I know Dan has 1 or 2 ideas. I know if we put this out, perhaps in our next newsletter, we would get a lot of donations, because over the years, I've had a lot of people approach me and say they'd be willing to give money to have a dog park in town. So if we can bring a budget down below $75,000, there's a good possibility between grants and donations we can cover up at least 50% of that, if not more. So I think the first question we need to address is the location. Once we decide on that, if we decide to go forward with this location, then we'll deal with how we're going to finance it.
And what we're gonna do it.
Mark, you had your hand up?
So I'm fine with the location, just to answer the questions in the order we're talking about them. I'm fine with the location. We're never going to find a perfect location around town. I think there's probably, we can figure out the parking over there. The street is relatively wide. It's a quiet area, there's a fair amount of land. I think it's not anywhere near the center of town, but it is what it is in terms of space. I'm fine with the location. In terms of the cost, I think this is very high, this cost.
It's the Cadillac version.
It's a Cadillac version on steroids. I mean, in terms of the borough paying for a fencing and, the trash receptacles, that sort of thing, the basic, because we don't have a dog park now, so it's okay to take baby steps. So, if we pay for the fencing and the things that keep the place clean, I think that's okay. I think anything beyond that, if it's raised through private donations, then privately that cash could be used for Cadillac things, to use your term.
Yeah.
But that's my nutshell view of it.
And I agree with that. The location is not. I don't have a problem with the location, but I certainly have a problem with the budget and all that's in that too.
Well, I'm suggesting that we don't look at the numbers now. Let's get past that first step, which we've been trying to do for about 10 years now. And get past the first step. Then I think before we go any further, let's see what income finances we can bring in. I truly believe that we can meet at least half of the need.
Okay, to basically echo what everybody, I don't have a problem with the location. I think that's great. As far as the price of that is 10 times higher than we should pay. 10 times. So we should re-look at the price and rewrite the spec. And when you said 75 is 3 times as high that
Yes,
we
too
see.
much. Even 75 is too much.
Yeah. So, but
I'm not suggesting
let's
that we
go
budget
to
75 for this,
yeah.
but the fencing alone is going to run $20,000 because first of all there was a mistake made. In the number in the book.
He didn't count both sides.
He didn't count both sides. So
What do you mean he didn't count?
It's
a fence.
listen,
Well, I
for
was giving-
200
yeah.
linear feet when he had a dog park of 50 by 100, which is 300 linear feet, and the smaller dog park 40 by 40, which is another 160.
But can I ask a question on that note? I don't mean to interrupt you, Matt.
No, go on.
Is what's the is it important to have? I mean, I love dogs, but I don't own a dog myself. So, is it important to have 2 separate size parks,
Yes.
2 different sizes of dogs?
Yeah.
They're kind of an industry standard. They recommend that. So the smaller dogs, they recommend going to a little smaller park, and the bigger dogs have a bigger
Kind of like
area.
the same reason we have an elementary school and a high school. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
I was just
What I
You play in one playground, I play in the other one.
what I will tell you from a cost perspective, which may help relieve this stress for you a little bit. If the DPW goes out and uses, say, the local co-ops and orders fence directly, takes a lot of the bidding process out of it, and it's going to lower that cost. I'm estimating about $31 a foot. They probably could do it, 30% cheaper than that if they just have a guy come in and do it directly. So you'll probably get that cost down.
good.
We're assuming that you're going to dig out a few feet of soil, put back a stone layer, put back about 12 inches of this very
But we
amenable
don't-
wood chips to allow for the feces and deposits the dogs let out to be on that and cleaned up much easier. You don't have to do it. You can leave it grass to start. So that's going to take a lot of
It's
it. It's gonna take a
Can
lot
be
of
done in stages.
Yeah,
You should have water and electric in the area because they need to clean stuff up. So that should be done. Those 2 services should be brought in. You could do
What's
it.
the storage shed for?
Well,
So
that's
you-
another option.
Yeah, you got
If you have a
it's only
storage
enough.
shed, then that means the DPW doesn't have to schlep tools back and forth.
Bags and-
But it's not something that you have to do.
No,
Peter,
it's not.
you and me, we
They're not
have
walking.
dogs. I took my dog 3 times a week to the Overpeck Park. There is no shed, there is no water, there is no electricity. They go over there in the evening and the gravel and stuff like
Yeah.
that. It's a simple thing.
But I'll tell you what my dog said. That's not Tenafly.
Oh, your dog said that? Oh, all right, I'm sorry.
Yes, Julie?
I just want to comment, if we've been talking about this for so long that we actually had an estimate that was done by our former engineer, David Halls. I think you forgot. That was over $100,000 too.
Yeah, but that's
It was
why we
the
don't
That
same
doesn't mean we're
price.
gonna
This
do
is
it.
this is more broken out. This
Yeah,
is
well,
And
more.
my dogs that
but it was the
advised
same
Mr.
thing.
Halls on that
Right.
are no longer here.
That's right. Yeah.
It's-
Plus,
I'm hoping my puppies
Yeah,
will
no,
be around to see this dog park.
And if you look at the items that are driving the higher costs, it's infrastructure. Particularly with the water. Yes, you could live without benches, but
You can live
this,
without water too.
this basically still includes,
No dog park
The
as
only
well.
thing
this
I'm
still
gonna
includes
suggest
what
that
the
if you don't put
what
a
the
wa-
original
water
committee
fountain-
envisioned,
if you
and
don't-
this was it.
If you don't put a water fountain for the dogs, I'm not gonna allow people to bring in bottled water. The
It'll-
dogs
it'll
can't
be a
drink, the
mess.
people can't drink.
Which is okay.
Which is fine.
You
Let's let
usually
them-
think about water for the dog and you pour it in and they drink. And then
All right, so
Okay.
like I said, the most important part now, so where do we want to go from this? Mark, just keep in mind that this is the first discussion. So this is the first time anybody really has heard
This
that, hey,
decade.
this is a great location for the dog park.
Absolutely.
If past experience is any indication, there are going to be some people that come and say, wait a second.
Yes,
So
then he's
the
going to come and
question
complain.
becomes, do you have the political will to put it there? You know, I think we've all discussed that this isn't a bad location, probably the best location we're going to come up with. So, but we have to be prepared. There's going to be a further discussion on this.
Yes,
So-
there will be. I'm sure all the residents on Dean Drive are going to come and talk about it.
Dan and then Tony.
And just we'll do this. The police will do the parking study.
Well, you know, if we decide this is where we want to go, one of the things we have to look at is the parking on Dean Drive, and yes, the police would certainly have to
And then
give us
on the other side, CXS won't have
a recommendation
Have to,
on
or do you have to notify them that we're building close? To
No,
them?
you don't have to, but we're gonna have to, at some point, we're gonna have to survey their line, so we know where the line is, so we make sure we're not on their property. So that's the one thing you're gonna have to
Okay.
spend some money for.
Tone, please.
I think you have to be corrected, Peter. It's not the best site that we came up with. The best site we came up with, in my view, was Roosevelt Commons.
Well, I eliminated that site 'cause we turned it
Secondly,
down.
I don't think this is going to work. First of all, you're going to have a major parking issue, and nobody at this table was around when we were going to do work in Walnut Park for kids, and the neighborhood was in
I
a
remember
beyond
that.
an uproar.
Yeah, I was around.
You may have been on
I
the council.
remember
then.
that.
So
There was a big
be
uproar.
very careful here. This
Yeah.
could be
Well,
this could be a real
that's why I'm
disaster.
saying that, you know, once the word gets out that we're considering the site, we're gonna have people say no.
Absolutely.
Well, plus, you know, the other thing is that you certainly don't want people stopping on Dean Drive to let their dogs. I mean, you can have a problem like that. I'm just, you know, listen. I'm
Yeah, where would
100%
they-
for a dog park. Please, I love it. I think it's
Any
fantastic.
spots on Day Avenue?
There may be.
Mark?
Has anyone had a conversation with the residents?
Yeah, that's
Listen,
No.
why would we do that if the council doesn't want to move forward with it?
So, I mean, it
What's the next step
sounds like we have some sort of consensus that that's a decent location. Perhaps we should contact the residents
and see.
before we go too far down the road.
Yeah, I agree.
Well,
We might as well
Have an
bring it out
open
in the
meeting.
open sooner than later.
I think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
correct. I think it's a next step.
Right.
And how do you think we should go about that?
We're going to basically announce that we have an open meeting to discuss the location of that and what
The
probably-
proposed location.
The proposed location, and probably what we should have over here, either between the dog parks or something, a parking space where people can come and park, so they don't park on Dean Street. Between the two of them, we can have like parking places where you have 20, 30 cars, because you're not going to
Where?
have.
Hold on a
Where
second.
would you like
As
to-
Where
somebody,
would you put
first of
it?
all, as somebody who
Okay.
was complaining about the cost of the dog park,
Yeah.
now you want to build a parking lot.
I didn't say a parking lot. We can basically the same type of gravel that you have in the dog parks. You can have people park on that
But
You
where?
can't do
in
that.
between them.
Actually, you can't be going off the Dean
Where
Drive
would you do that?
over the curb and parking on the lawn.
Where the flagpole is.
No,
Around
that's
the
not
side.
going to work.
No, it's not going to work.
that
You know what
doesn't make
what I
sense.
would suggest is we have a couple of concept drawings here that show us what the layout is, aerial views. Why don't we schedule a public meeting to discuss this? And these are the concept drawings we show everyone. We're not down the road with details yet, but we bring people in at the concept stage and we have a conversation.
Right.
If everyone says, okay, it's great. If people
Or if
come in
everybody say,
with torches and
everybody say no,
pitchforks,
absolutely not, then we rethink.
says Dan's idea.
One of the mistakes we've made in the past,
Paul is not
and
here.
I agree with Tony, my favorite location was Roosevelt Common. But like most of the things we discuss here that have any degree of controversy, the people that are opposed to them come out, and the people that might want to support them don't come out. So
Right.
if we're going to have a public meeting, we don't just announce it to the residents that surround it, because there's lots of people that feel Tenafly should have a dog park.
But the
Okay.
ones who are most affected are the people living right on Dean Street.
I'm not arguing
So
with
the
you.
parking, the increase in traffic, I mean, really, they're the first affected people. So
Well-
I have a dog, I love dogs, but I live far away from there, so
Yeah, but not
my
just- not
point
just-
of view
not just
would be
Dean Drive though, you're gonna have Leonard Avenue's gonna be affected.
all, I mean,
The whole
around
lot-
that,
the whole area's
around
gonna
that
be-
area. So, I mean, my perspective on it would be very different from somebody living
Well,
right
but you
there.
want all perspectives. I mean, look.
You do, you absolutely
We've gone through this 2 or 3 times, you know, with the location of Roosevelt Commons. We even talked about Walnut Park. We've talked about a number of places. You know, it comes down in you know, it's like the street fair. We decided to go ahead with the street fair despite the fact that there was a merchant that felt he was negatively affected. All right, so people are going to feel that if this is near their home, they're going to be negatively affected. The question becomes, are their fears realistic? Okay, there's not going to be any lights in this dog park, so it's not like people are going to be there all night. Are we going to be able to produce a set of rules that minimizes any sort of issues the neighbors might have? Parking is
That's
part
I
of the
would say
mix as
traffic
well.
and parking.
I mean, how many people are going to come to this dog park at any one time? Do you really expect 40 or 50 people to show up with 40 or 50 cars?
No.
You don't get that many in Overpeck Park.
No, you get 20, you'll be lucky.
But that's for the whole county.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
So I don't know. And it's hard to predict.
Yeah.
So-
Peter, just can I ask you, for people that were not in the council when you discussed the previous location, the one that you have in
Roosevelt
Park.
Commons?
Yeah, where was
What
it?
was the issue with that?
Well, first of all, we actually put together where we wouldn't have to do much. There were no trees coming down. It was an ideal location, and the 2 complaints were, Roosevelt Commons is too crowded now, and it's too close to the kiddie parks where the kids might be afraid of dogs. And then but once again, a lot of the people that complained were neighbors,
May I suggest something, because I think that there is something here that we need to do. I kind of like the idea of Roosevelt Park and the fact that the kids are afraid. Those are enclosed parks that are not going to go out, so might not be a big issue. Can we suggest we provide both and as a discussion to choose one?
Well, we can dig up the old
Yeah, I'm
stuff.
sure the old stuff
is
around.
At no cost. The question becomes, now you're going to have, residents. The opponents are going to be fighting each other. Well, put it in that place. It's much better than. I mean, we decided against Roosevelt Common. If we want to reopen that, that's your prerogative.
I think let's at least look. I don't even know where we would put it in. I can't
At
visualize
the
it.
corner of the street there?
You walk out. You go a little to the left,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and you'll see an open area. You could go by it 100 times. You don't think about it, but there's
Yeah.
an open area. That's
Yes.
where it was going to be. We also thought about putting it right alongside the driveway here with these tall trees, not taking down the trees, mind you,
Right, just in
fencing
between,
it
yeah.
in. And of course, the residents on Foster Road didn't like that idea.
So
And
that's going to happen again. I mean, the same thing is going to happen. The people are
Yeah.
not going to like
Yeah,
it.
but Roosevelt Commons was a much more suitable.
Yeah, but there are no houses next to it.
keep in mind,
Like, not like here or there's no houses.
keep
just
in mind, we talked about Walnut Park and the controversy. I know I was running Little League at the time because we were redoing Sunnyside Park, where there's 2 baseball diamonds and a soccer diamond. And Little League needed a place to play for 1 year. And we suggested the younger kids could go to Walnut Park. There was a big to-do about it. Every complaint was, including fire trucks wouldn't be able to get down there because cars would be parked on both sides of the street. Well, A, there was no fires down there the whole summer that we were there, and B, it worked out fine. A little parking congestion, but there's parking congestion around Sunnyside Park and on Foster Road when we have football games. Anytime we have a crowd, this town just doesn't have a lot of parking lots.
May I suggest to the council, if you agree, let's postpone the vote today. Let's look at next
Vote?
time at
There's no vote.
selection.
No
No,
vote.
let's look at next time at both the Walnut Park, no, not the
Roosevelt.
Roosevelt Park and this one, and then we make a decision? Is that
Fine with
okay?
And we have a public hearing afterwards, right?
Yeah, and we have a, we make a
Well, I
decision,
don't-
then we can have a
we're not
public
gonna
hearing.
have-
When we're ready to,
Well,
right?
We won't call it a public hearing. We're gonna invite people that wanna talk about a dog park.
Yeah.
We're considering 2 locations, and let people come. If you're in favor of a dog park, feel free to come. If you don't believe either one of these
I
or
kind of
both
like
of these locations.
Roosevelt
Yeah,
Park.
I want to go and walk there and see it.
Yeah, and
I would
the
suggest-
parking, there is
I-
everything, it's there.
Walk the Roosevelt Common
Yeah.
with 2
I wouldn't
things
do
in
that.
mind. The congestion issue, too many things going on in Roosevelt Commons, and the adjacentness of the potential dog park to the, what's,
The newly renovated playgrounds.
what's that kid's name?
Griffin Park.
Griffin Park, and there's 2 playgrounds there, and they're both very close. And
Okay,
Keep that in mind.
let's bring the plans next time, both of them, and we
Yeah,
can
let's
select.
look at them.
Yeah, thank you.
okay,
we
listen,
can
if
make
you
a
have
better informed
if you have
decision.
problem finding them, David Hall might have. I probably have a set in my office as
I
well.
All
should
right.
have them scanned in my computer.
Okay, next is something not controversial.
When is that gonna take place?
Well,
Next meeting.
next meeting.
July?
Yep.
Good night, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, I'm not gonna be here.
Something not controversial: the tree planting protocols.
All right.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello, Bob.
Hello, Max, how are you? Okay. Tree planting protocols. What do you want to know, Max?
Every tree that comes down, a tree comes up.
Right.
That's the
Is
protocol.
that the protocol?
Well, first of all, let me just say this: it's very easy for anybody to say we're cutting down too many trees, and we're losing ground, because we are cutting down a lot of trees, and we are losing ground.
Yes.
The question becomes, are we cutting down trees we shouldn't be cutting down? Okay, and second of all, is there something we can do so that we're not losing ground? We have a tree fund to which developers put a lot of money into it, so we do have significant amount of money, correct me if I'm saying anything wrong,
So far,
to
so good.
plant trees.
Yeah.
As far as the trees coming down, we don't need to go, and I know Mark has a letter on the agenda about 53 Knickerbocker. And we don't have to go any further than 53 Knickerbocker to look at what happened to trees that were as gorgeous and as important as any trees you'll ever come across. They're mine in Tenafly. And they're all gone now, or most of them are gone now. And we had discussions at this table, we had discussions at the planning board, and basically, we didn't have the tools to prevent this from happening. Now, I'm not saying that as a criticism, because I believe we have as many tools as a municipality could expect to have. This was a unique situation, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that feel really bad about what happened. Nobody felt worse than I did. But
Peter,
if you have any questions about how
Yeah.
Bob is handling this, now's the time to.
could I just frame the question? Okay, so we plant X amount of trees a year.
We
personally.
average 44 trees a year.
Okay, so the question is, what are the resources that it takes to do that? And what if the mayor and council would decide to do 44 times X every year? Now, whatever that, the members choose that number to be, whether it's 150 trees a year, in other words, if that was our program, what would it take to execute that and make that happen? How much money and manpower?
Right. Oh,
Locations.
and first of all,
Right.
location. Right now, we have a balance of 160 locations.
What does
What
the
does that
balance
mean?
mean?
It was cut and not planted.
Oh, since
No.
since 2000, since I've computerized the records, 2013 is a little iffy. We have some, we don't have all of our information. All right, we had total of 400 trees that have been municipal street trees that have been
Municipal.
removed.
Since when?
2013,
So just borough trees.
We are just talking about borough trees.
which is what I want to talk.
Yeah.
To date, 201 trees have been planted, so we're averaging 44 trees a year. All right, the balance of the trees to be planted is 164. That's the 400 minus the 201 that have been planted. We've had 10 refusals.
25 locations that are not suitable for replanting. So that leaves me a balance of 164 trees. Planting in-house costs us approximately $175 per tree. A contracted tree, $300. In-house planting to eliminate the existing balance would be $28,700 in-house with a 99% survival rate. Contractors' cost would be $49,200 with an 80% survival rate.
Did you say 80?
80%.
So why would we contract if we are doing better than they are?
Well, the
this
reason
is-
we contract
this
is
is why I'm
because
here to let you
it
know.
takes man-hours to do these
Right,
things.
right, so Sean, we want to understand the facts,
Yeah,
right?
We're not hiring new people to plant trees.
So you'll have a loss of approximately 33 trees, 131 survive. So when planted in-house, we have the 99.9% survival rate. We handpick our stock. Right? We go to the nursery, get the amount of trees we're going to plant within a 24 to 48 hour period. That's all we bring in. Then we plant. Then we go back and we get whatever we need. After all the trees are planted, we constantly monitor the trees. We water each of the trees because I know, we know that the residents are not going to water them. So we go around and water them. In between watering, we're constantly inspecting, constantly monitoring. If we see that a certain area or a certain tree needs more attention, it gets the attention. In the spring, we do structural pruning of all the trees planted in the previous spring. Structural pruning helps eliminate any problems that the tree might have or prevent the tree from growing in a fashion that would cause a hazard or deform the tree and cause problems down the road. Then you also fertilize the trees. So the current process is self-funded by tree permits. If you go out and you start doing large tree plantings, you will deplete that fund, and then you'll have to put that money into your budget.
How much is in the tree fund now?
Balance of $74,382, only because we cleaned up in 2015 a lot of
So we have
escrow-
74,000?
escrow money.
74.
Yeah,
Yes,
more
yes.
25 trees.
So,
Yeah, that cleaned up a lot of escrow, and we had an influx of $35,800 into that
So-
fund.
let me ask you a question, Bob.
At this rate.
The magic number, as I hear it,
At this rate.
Mark, is about 40 trees a year. In other words,
Right, that's
so,
about what we're doing.
what would it cost us to plant 40 more additional trees every year? And first of all, the first question is, do we have the ability to do that? And if we do, what would it cost us?
It would, so far, since I've been keeping track, our best year was, it was 61 in 2015. That was our best year. That was 61 trees that were planted in 2015, right? Now, you got to remember, you start getting up, if you go out with a contractor and you contract it out, now I have a few hundred trees that I have to go out and I have to water. Now it's going to drain my resources, all right? Then it could increase the mortality rate. It could go up, it could go higher than 20%. So what we're doing now, we're able to provide a good product for the resident. We're able to provide a beautiful shade tree, and we're able to have that tree survive. So our efforts aren't wasted.
What is the planting season?
It's we start as soon as the nurseries start bringing in the stock. It varies. It varies
Well,
from
we're
year to year.
talking spring, fall?
Yeah, no,
summer?
spring. We do the spring. We can't do the fall because of leaf season. I can't take my resources and put them into planting trees when I need them to help pick up the leaves.
So when you say it costs $175 for the borough to do it itself versus $300 for a contractor, does that include all the soft costs of, is your labor built into that?
That labor's not built into it. It's
Not built
it's on my
into it.
hard cost. My labor's there.
Because that's the cost of the tree and the dirt and
Yeah, that's
the gas to get the backhoe there.
Right.
The direct cost,
Right.
okay.
How large is, how big, how tall?
2.5 to 2.5 inch caliber. So you're getting a 10, 12 foot tree. Depending on the variety.
Well, the most important thing is the mortality. Saying when they plant them, it's over 95%. Yeah, I said 99%, but
Plus
we
don't.
a small tree will grow. And
Of course.
we've seen some really good examples of trees. I like what the tennis club did on
Mhm.
County Road. Those trees have really blossomed. I'm sure they take care of them because I see people out there watering them all the
Right.
time. So I'm sure this is what you're doing with the trees.
That's what we do.
Would you mention that the problems of location?
Mhm.
Because there are times when you don't plant a tree because you can't find a place to put it?
No, when I say that, I didn't say
Well-
problem locations. The location isn't really suitable for a tree. There could have been a tree in one location that was between the curb and the sidewalk, didn't have the proper soil volume, all right, to maintain the tree. That's why the tree was dead. It might have been directly planted underneath a primary wire, and Public Service came in and did their famous V-cut and left really no canopy for the tree to survive. You're not going to put it back there, you know, because the same thing's going to happen. You don't want to take a tree that is going to grow 40 to 50 foot high, put it in a spot without the proper growing conditions, and you get that same tree only grows to 15 or 20 feet high, and it takes it 30 years to do that. It's not in the proper spot.
doesn't
So,
make sense.
Next, please.
So-
and you also get, when we do it in-house, we also get the one-on-one with the resident. We have the proposed location, we put the stakes out, we call our markouts in, then when we leave a door hanger on the door for the resident then goes out, takes a look at the stake to see where the tree's gonna go. If they like it there, we don't hear from them. If they don't, they call us, we meet them on site, we explain why we've picked that location, and then they give us their concerns. You're not gonna get that with a contractor. The contractor is
So
gonna.
here's the issue that we have to, we cannot continue to take trees down and get a deficit, because that would mean that sooner or later you get rid of all the trees. And I'm not talking 10 years, 20 years, but if you can continuously build a deficit, you basically get rid of trees. So the process we have to adopt is that we replenish every tree that we cut in a certain way, because you cannot continuously create a tree deficit in Tree City, USA, which is Tenafly.
Well,
But
you've heard the situation.
Yeah.
How do you
I'm gonna go through
suggest
that. Yeah.
reaching that goal?
Yeah, so specifically, if there is a question of funding, we have specific funding that we can use from open space funding to make sure that we get the trees planted.
That's
Open
maintenance.
space
That's
funding is
That's
not,
maintenance.
is not going to, we have our tree fund, that's really the only.
We have the tree fund and we have the open space.
Open space, you
Open
can't
space.
put
I don't know
trees
if
in
That's
there's
open
maintenance.
open
space.
space for
I'm
that.
sorry?
That's maintenance,
I don't think
Planting a
it
tree is considered maintenance?
yes.
Why is it?
Especially if you're planting trees that were specifically taken down. Yeah.
Okay,
It's
then-
not, it's not like you're designing
All right,
an open
if,
space.
then we can put it in the budget. That doesn't matter. The fact that we try to find a way to say that we can't, it's not the way to do
But
it.
I think we need to be clear on what trees we're talking about.
With trees that we cut, that's very simple.
Street
We
trees.
cannot have a
Narrow
deficit
trees.
in cutting trees and continually depleting the town of trees. That's very
But we're
simple.
not
But we don't,
depleting.
we're not depleting the town of trees.
Well,
So far this year, we're halfway through the year, we've only removed 12 trees.
Yeah, but
no,
overall,
You're saying in 4 years, we removed
400 something.
400 and we only planted 200 or
Yeah,
240.
so we are in a
So
deficit.
we are running at a deficit.
Right, but your removals don't stay at, you don't do 100
So-
a year, 100, you know, where
Right.
you will.
It's-
Now, this year, we've only done 12, so
Well, are you
now in the
suggesting-
spring, we're gonna be pretty much caught up.
Are you suggesting that in future years, less trees will be cut down?
Yeah.
so
It's-
that's
Based on
exactly
what?
the point that we want to make, and which is very
So I
good.
think the answer to your question is, we want to make sure that in future years, we plant more than we cut down.
Exactly, and we
Whether
slowly
don't-
catch up
it's not
with that
40
deficit.
40 extra, just, look, but the only concern is, you have a year where you could take down 50 trees, we're gonna want you to plant at least
50
51.
trees, right.
That's right.
Well, just so you know, in our stats, from 2014 to date, there's been a total of 2,000, this is including municipal, and this addresses the question that the Boy Scouts brought up regarding construction and the removal of trees on construction sites. Between municipal and construction, there was 2,200 trees removed since 2014 to date. Planted, 2,467.
The majority on the private property.
So you have a net gain of
Yeah.
268 trees.
Yeah.
So we have 268 trees more today than we did
Yeah,
in 2014.
But here, Bob, listen for a second.
No, I understand.
We have
what you're getting at.
a ordinance in Tenafly saying for every tree you cut, you have to plant one, and we are.
No, we don't.
It doesn't say that.
Excuse me, any private property that comes and asks for a tree, we ask for mitigation.
No.
No, not
No.
every tree.
No, that's not true.
That's not true.
So what
It's
is
not-
the ordinance?
Okay,
You
then
want-
tell
What
me.
is the
You wanna
ordinance? What are we required
You want
to
to
do?
simplify
If I-
it?
The simplified, a property owner, as long as the tree's not in the buffer zone on his property, can basically remove any tree that he wants outside of the buffer zone, if he wants. They don't do that, right?
Without
And-
mitigation.
Without mitigation. That is
Then we're gonna
absolutely
have to
right.
change that,
But
Well,
that's why you
changed
are.
from that.
Let's have one battle at a
Yeah,
time.
okay.
let's do
It goes back to, Max, it's
Property
very,
owners' rights.
it's very easy to say that,
yes,
okay? But what you're going to have is you're gonna have a lot of people,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
remember that.
we had this discussion about the previous subject, and we ended up with a little bit of a compromise. But you can't tell people that they can't cut down a tree.
let's then go back to our municipality. Our municipality's role or rule should be, and I think that we're getting there, that for every tree that we cut, we plant a tree, and we're gonna
Well,
reduce the
we've
deficit.
just agreed to do that.
Okay, all right,
And-
so which is
and
the
our
most
direct-
important?
Our director says that he's capable of doing that, so I
Okay.
think
We
we
crossed that road.
made our point where that's concerned.
So let me, just for some clarification on this, so you have to catch up with 140 trees or so?
It's going to be less than 164.
Okay.
Because once the locations are viewed,
Yeah.
there might be some areas that we
Exactly.
can't put
No,
a
you
tree.
cannot
So-
do
Yeah.
It's
so-
nobody's intent
Or-
to make up all of those trees right away.
No,
Where the
I understand.
residents don't
That's
want
what
a
I'm-
tree.
So is this something you do over the course of 12 months, 24 months? And what resources do you need beyond that you already have
Yeah,
to get
because
that
we
done
were
within the next
willing to
24
do
months,
that.
for
No,
instance?
I understand.
To
I
spend
understand.
the money.
Yeah.
If, you know what? If we want to catch up, let me,
I think maybe perhaps he
Yeah.
comes back to us with a plan of catching
Mhm.
up within 24 months.
if you want to,
and then-
I was going to say, I'll come back with a plan where we're
Right,
going to
'cause
catch
you
up
can't
and
do it unless he has the
eliminate the
resources.
No,
balance.
we are fully in agreement with
Because
that.
out of the 164, that's just a location number.
Yeah.
That's not an actual,
Understood.
a site that's been viewed and considered for.
Yeah,
And-
Bob, I
and-
cannot tell you how many people came to me that we cut 3 trees in Hoyle Park, and we didn't plant any.
We haven't planted them yet. No, I
Yeah,
know
so people see that and they,
that.
you know.
And we're aware.
Okay,
We
good.
did actually put.
We got to an agreement.
Yeah.
We got to an
Bob, I
agreement.
asked you this question last time we were sitting here
Yes,
during the lunch.
and yes, you
This
can.
This is a thing that I was thinking, Mayor. I understand that you cannot always plant back all the trees at the same location.
Correct.
That's never going to happen. There's too many variables there. So my question was, if you're trying to catch up, basically we want trees in Tenafly. It doesn't matter if it's on the corner of, Engel and
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
So if a homeowner says, I'll plant the tree in my backyard, give it to me, can we do that?
That we can't do.
That you have a shortage, you have to plant 50 trees, you can't find the locations, and somebody comes and says, look, I have a backyard, I'm willing to plant a tree there, will you give it to me?
What we can do is,
And you don't
We-
have to buy enormous trees
No,
for somebody's
no.
backyard, it can be a smaller tree.
what we can do in accordance with the ordinance is if we have a location that we would like to plant, but the proper location for the tree is going to be out of the right-of-way, basically on the person's front lawn, out of our right-of-way. According to our ordinance, we can plant that with an assumed right-of-way, but once the tree is in, the homeowner takes responsibility of the tree. We have
Yeah.
no liability for that tree, but it has to be agreed upon by the homeowner.
Well, we
No,
can.
absolutely, I
So,
understand
We can
that was-
fashion an agreement, but what I'm hearing that's most important is the mortality rate of the trees that he's planting and caring for is over 95%.
Yeah,
Of course.
it's perfect.
You give it to a resident, and your mortality rate is going to go way down.
To a contractor, it's
So
gonna
you-
go down. He
yeah,
just wants
well,
to
the
get the trees in the
contra-
ground and get out,
And-
Right.
you know?
But at least the contractor is planting them on our property.
Correct.
So, and then you also, once again, well, wait a second. He planted a tree on your property. Why didn't he plant one on my property? Or why did, you're running into some issues when you start doing things on private property. It's not a bad idea because this poor guy would have a devil of a time trying to figure out where to put 160 trees.
That's what I mean.
on public
this
property.
may be practically impossible to
Just-
do at some point.
One recommendation is that we speak to the planning board. We could recommend that on all these houses that are being knocked down and new houses being built, that the developer agreement is made with them having to plant however many street trees we feel that are.
Street trees?
Yeah.
They have to plant
Yeah,
them?
let them, you know,
Yeah.
they're taking,
Well, okay.
You know, that would help.
What happens if they have wires in front of their house?
well, then we would determine the location.
I mean, I think the planning
That's a
board
good
would be
idea.
very willing
Yeah,
to
that's
do
a
that.
good-
That's a good idea.
Yeah, on
it's
all
a
the
very good
knockdowns,
idea.
have them plant trees, street trees.
That's fine.
And then I also recommend that we do what we did back in 2014 when we put a blurb in the newsletter that if you want a street tree, call my department. We put you on the list. Those people that called, they've all been planted. You know, so
That's a good idea.
that helps us.
That's-
That helps us.
everything-
But in the
everything
right
that
way.
the
That's a
house,
good idea.
absolutely.
I would say
So I mean, and that's my
That's a good
plan, and
idea.
I think we'll make good headway.
two things that I
Yeah.
came away from this discussion that I'd like to move on is one, I think we're very fortunate because it sounds like Bob's process with these trees is so thorough that you couldn't ask for somebody to be more caring and more involved in, he doesn't just plant the trees and walk away. I mean, I find it hard to believe, I'm not questioning your integrity, that we actually are so caring about the trees that we plant. If residents were that caring, we'd have a lot less trees coming down.
The tree department is, they love planting trees. They love that time of the year.
Yeah.
They enjoy it tremendously.
How many people in the tree department this week?
2. And I commend them this year because it was just the 2 guys. My tree foreman's been out since late summer last year, still out. The 2 guys that are in the department, they did the planting this year, and they did a fantastic job. I give them a lot of credit. I appreciate all their efforts, and they do a fantastic job with it.
And I think the second part of what I've taken away from this tonight is that we all agree that it's most important, and from this day forward, we're going to make sure that we plant more street trees than we take down.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that's
We're just,
That's
we're just
that
getting,
is
we're trying to get
absolutely-
caught up with
And we will
from
ask-
the years past.
We will ask you to keep us informed if there's
Mhm.
any issues, if there's any reason why you feel that would be beyond your ability to do, whether it's financial or labor or whatever, let us know, because maybe then we can figure out a way that we
absolutely.
can be of
Sure.
assistance to you.
I appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, have a good evening.
Take care.
And before we go into the next subject, do you understand half of what we talked about? You would think it's an easy thing. We love trees, let's plant them. It's so difficult. And everybody at this table gets frustrated because we are a tree city and every one of us wants to see more trees than we have. You know, and every time I pass a location where there's a new house and the old trees are coming down, it really kills me. But on the other hand, how can I tell the guy that owns that property you can't build a new house? So anyway, thank you for your interest. And we have one more thing that might be of interest to you, and that's our school resource officer. So Jewel, do you want to take us where we have to go on that?
Sure.
Before you start, Mayor, can you explain for Andrew there what a school resource officer is for the high school?
Okay, and once again, if I'm speaking out of incorrectly, please correct me. A school resource officer we have dedicated in partnership with the Board of Education, who pays their share of the cost of a policeman, and we all know police officers are expensive. They do good work, but they're expensive. We share that cost. We have one police officer now who spends his day at schools, working with the kids. You talked about issues with drugs and things. Well, he's worth his weight in gold in preventive and corrective issues with substance abuse. He visits the other schools, but stays mainly in the high school. And the sense of the feedback that we get is that it's very productive. Another part of the equation is that the young people start to feel connected with policemen, with our police department, which is very important because the police are here to serve us, and a lot of times kids feel that they're out to get you, and that couldn't be further from the truth. They're out to protect you and your families, and the relationship between the police department and students has greatly improved. And I think a lot of these communities that you read about where there's issues between the police and the community is there's a lack of programs such as this. So we entered into a 3-year agreement with these schools 3 years ago. That agreement is expiring at the end of June, and we're now in the process of hoping to renegotiate a 3-year deal with the schools. Or I don't know how many years at this point, but come September we want to have a school resource officer in the schools like we've had for the past 3 years, and I believe the schools feel the same way. But just like trees, nothing is easy. You got to put it together where both sides feel that the deal makes sense to them and works for them. So with that in mind, tell us how we're going to do that.
Well, we have really two issues. The issue of whether or not we renew and continue the agreement, which I think both the council and the board have expressed a desire to do. But the thing that we have to take a look at most closely now is, I guess, the financial aspects of the deal. I think in the meeting that the police chief had with the police commission, it was laid out the fact that the construct of both the agreement and the budget that followed the agreement at that time 3 years ago was based on the idea of an officer who had served 3 to 5 years. The chief explained that the way it worked out, he wound up with an officer who had served for 9 years. So rather than getting 50% of the individual officer's salary, it was essentially we were gaining or being offset by 50% of what the theoretical cost estimate had been. So the question now for the council is whether or not we continue in that mode, or whether now we are 3 years into the contract. The officer who was a senior officer has now served an additional 3 years. So the gap between the cost estimate and the actual cost has widened significantly.
What is the school board paying, is the school board paying 50% now?
No.
Of our estimate.
They've actually completed their final payment as of January. And
So they paid
there's-
46%,
right.
huh?
They pay how much?
46%. But keep in mind, as I said, it was 46% of an estimate for an officer who would have been in the 3 to 5 year range.
Well,
We ended up with an officer who had a service in of 9 years.
Just keep in mind that seniority counts as far as police salaries are concerned, so the longer a policeman has been in service to our community, the higher his pay rate. So if we expected an officer of 3 to 5 years experience and they got somebody with 9 years experience, that officer's salary was a little higher than what we projected. So the question becomes, in this particular case, I think we know who the officer is going to be. We shouldn't have a problem.
Oh, we already know who the officer is?
Well,
The same one.
for better or worse, first of all, he's doing a very good job. The feedback has been superb.
Kids love
But
it.
he's the only one.
He was the only one.
The chief
who-
put it out to his department, and none of the other officers stepped up. And this gentleman is willing to continue. He's doing a good job. But since we know who he is, we are
But can we
better
get
a-
50% now?
better able to
Can we come back to my math question?
Right.
So is the 46 we paid of the actual cost,
They pay.
or excuse me, 46%, thank you, that the Board of Ed paid, of actual cost or an estimated cost?
Estimated
So
cost.
what's the actual percentage? What do
If you
think?
look at the bottom, okay.
You have this page?
Oh, my machine's dead.
Oh,
I'll
Okay.
share with Max, you can.
That's okay.
okay. So the estimate on the top, if you see the bars that are highlighted in gray, So what you have on top is the chart of what was paid for the years 2014 through 2017. And 2017 is the period that concludes as of June 30th of this year. So that all the payments that are indicated here have already been made.
Okay, so,
So what you see is that the board paid its portion of what was agreed to, but
They paid
the
50%.
officer was selected after, post-agreement.
okay, so that still doesn't answer my question. What percentage did the board pay of the actual cost?
Hold on one
Because this is
second.
all estimated here.
Roughly
But that was an actual payment, that 158 was their actual payment, right?
Correct,
Yeah, so.
But based on the estimate.
based on the
But
estimate.
that was the, which turned out to be 46%
Yeah, I'll tell you in a
of
second.
That agreement
Okay.
expires June 30th. I'm more concerned about the agreement the proposal we're going to make to them at the next joint use meeting.
And that's the part that's at the bottom.
Yeah,
Where they will be
The chart
paying the
is
full 50%.
recreated, but it's created based on the actual salary, since we now have the officer named and in place. And if you see, if you're looking at the percentages, the bottom line is if you looked at the actuals, the board's portion, based on actuals, would be 134% increase over what they paid.
yeah.
So, but it's,
Previously,
so
yeah.
has anyone, have we spoken to the board about this?
No.
So
We're
why don't-
we're having internal discussions,
Before going there.
before going there. The only thing that we've had so far is the chief has had preliminary discussions with the board only to establish that they are interested in renewing it. There is, the board has told us what their plan is. The board will be meeting on July 18th. Thus, a joint use meeting would need to be scheduled after that date, since July 18th will be the first time that the board will be discussing the matter. The superintendent has asked that we send her an update of what we discuss tonight. And so they're looking for our output from what we're suggesting, so that they can have their preliminary discussion and then follow up with the joint use meeting.
So, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
So it was always, when we just talked about this with the board historically, was that we would each pay 50% of the costs. If 50% of the costs are these numbers, I think we just go to the board and say, these are the numbers. How does everybody
Absolutely.
feel? Do we have a deal? And we move
It might
Well,
forward.
that's the decision that the
No,
council
and my
has
I don't know
question
what
is,
else we would
Jude,
do.
these are actual numbers now that we know who the police officer is?
Correct.
Yeah.
These are, even the projected in the following years are
Yes.
actual
Yeah,
numbers?
Yes.
I agree that we should propose to them that they pay 50% of the actual
Absolutely.
cost.
Yeah.
The question in my mind at this particular point in time is, since they already have a budget for the current year, I'm sure that they did not budget an increase of 34%.
If you look back, just briefly, at 24 to 2015, if you recall, because it seems like it was a long time ago, but the board, for whatever reason, had only budgeted 40,000. And if you recall, the council was concerned about that, but ultimately the council agreed to accept only $40,000 in the initial year.
My
I think we should
suggestion
do the
at
same
this
this
point
year.
to the council is that we add up to 3 years, okay? And whatever amount they want, as long as at the end of 3 years, they paid that total amount. If they can't pay the correct amount the first year, they can compensate for it in the second and the
They
third.
go on a payment plan. Sure.
That's okay with us,
Yeah.
as long as they pay their dues.
As long as
Well-
the total is the 50%.
One of the things that I suggested we keep in mind, one of the things that I've suggested is that maybe we can reach a compromise with the board, because based on the discussion that the chief had with the police commission, and you can chime in, please, he does not feel that the current officer would serve for an additional 3 years. So, and he laid out that he is actively trying to
Got a younger guy
get
start
training for some of the
Younger
more
guy.
junior officers.
So
So
let's
one
get our money up.
possibility-
Then let's get the money up
Keep
front.
in mind, though, you can't take somebody that just came out of the academy
Correct. Of course.
and put him into the schools because he doesn't know
Yeah.
doesn't know the
So-
language.
What we can do is, we have the estimate for these 3 years, with a promise that if that costs are gonna go down, we will
We'll
give them
adjust.
the
Right,
rebate.
it's
Absolutely.
adjusted
That's
down.
simple.
We'll adjust it.
Now,
so
keep in
simple.
mind that our current contract with the PBA runs through 2018.
Okay.
So the amount for 2019 is basically
A projection.
2018
A projection.
plus.
Yeah, projection.
We take it year by year, we can't overcomplicate this.
So tell
So
me,
do you
are we-
want
Yes, we
me
can.
to deliver these numbers to the
Just tell
board?
them whatever the
But
numbers are,
deliver
what the
the
numbers are.
numbers as 50%. Don't say that, you know, if you want to pay less, we'll take less. Just
No.
say, give us 50%.
Sharma, first of all, they can watch this on TV tomorrow
Right,
night.
they're gonna go.
I forgot this is our open
But
meeting.
second of all, I mean, we have to be realistic. I'm sure they
No,
have a
of
number
course,
in their
fair
budget
enough.
for next
No,
year.
I think
And
your
we should
suggestion
have
was fair. I'm
a
just
degree of
joking.
flexibility here. Once again, I remind everybody that the taxes that we pay for the schools and the taxes we pay for the municipality come out of the same pocket.
Same pocket.
So, you know, it's
Yeah,
obviously.
but it doesn't mean that the town has to also have a
No,
double.
I know, but I
We don't
always
have
keep
to.
in mind that, you know, whatever side of the ledger it comes out of, the taxpayer is not affected by it.
So
You know,
go to the,
even
go to the
Even
school.
non-school parents pay school tax.
But even if we're talking with actuals now, if we deal with a situation where the current officer is only gonna serve one additional year, your actuals, well, it's a split school year,
Yeah.
but the actuals for, if we go into another 3-year agreement, the actuals for years 2 and 3
Will change.
could go down.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we just
And
go
we'll
with
adjust
it.
accordingly.
That's
with
it, we
that.
just adjust it in the future.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we're
I'm not worried
we're
about it.
easygoing.
No big deal.
Okay,
No big deal.
Okay, so I will deliver this to their business
Yeah.
administrator.
good luck. Let's
He's
go
gonna
on to
like
the
that.
administrator's report.
Oh, this is a long meeting today.
Well, mine is relatively short because the bulk of our business was in the to be considered portion. We just discussed the school resource officer. And I just want to point out, if you have the full agreement there for your reference when you have a
Thank you
chance
for
to take a
telling
look
us.
at it.
Take care, guys.
And I understand that if
Yes.
you'd stayed past 9 o'clock, you would have got 2 merit badges.
Make sure I wasn't hitting wrong back there. Okay, just a few quick updates because we had a very lengthy report at our last meeting. But we just wanted to report that we're doing very well in terms of signups for the senior transportation
50
program.
seniors.
50 seniors,
Wow.
and they're still coming in. We had, as we anticipated we would, we had a significant increase after we got out our newsletter, and it had the sign-up form right in the document. So they're coming in on a regular basis, and our ridership is increasing significantly, and it's going well. We haven't heard of any
great.
problems as yet, and we meet on a regular basis. In fact, we have one of the things, Mark, I think you had even suggested when we had a discussion at one of the senior services committee meetings, Mark Feldman had asked us if we were going to be looking into scheduling software. We indicated that that was a possibility. We first needed to find out if there was something of that nature. We have found out that there is, and we've arranged a demonstration for next
Excellent.
week to take a look
I
at
would
it.
tell you this, driving through Teaneck, I think it was Monday afternoon, what do I see coming the other way? With the Tenafly senior.
Nice.
It really was a good
It'll be
feeling,
a ride.
really a good feeling. The question is, 50 registered, but now we gotta see the ridership model, so that after a couple of months, then we sit down and we try to,
Talk about this.
try to make adjustments to accommodate the model. We don't know what the model is, nobody can predict
Well,
it.
it's
So it's gonna be very interesting, but it's on the road and it's doing well. And your committee, and I know, Max, you were very adamant about this, it's working out well.
Good, that's the most important.
Good.
All right. Our next update is about police communications. I didn't want the police to be forgotten because if you recall, we did the feasibility study regarding police and fire. We've been advising you periodically, and we had come to a point where we realized that police and fire were on a different track. Fire has moved along very quickly, and we have the resolutions on tonight's agenda for implementing the fire program. And now the police program was held up a little because they actually had to wait for the state. And so I just wanted to give you a heads up that they're back on track. They've gotten their approval to come on to the state system, so we plan to present their contract with the state and the purchase of their radios at the July meeting. So both our police and fire will be up to speed communications-wise.
May I?
Sure.
It's good for me to just interject now because I don't want. One of the things when I read the older resolution is that the police department is buying a proprietary software, specifically some computers and some video systems which are proprietary, and as such they have to go to a specific source, and also proprietary system for scheduling the police department. Buying proprietary systems are very expensive. Somehow I have the belief that both the state police, the Bergen County Police, they do have programs, their schedules, their overtime and everything like that. If we continue on a parallel track with a proprietary system, not only that we're going to be diverging from the county, the state or so, but we're also going to increase the price because proprietary systems, they have to be maintained by one person. It doesn't allow for a crosstalk between the. So I have a concern about that. I wanted to mention here so you understand. So rather than going through a whole situation, there is always a way to merge our system with existing standard systems where we can get advantage of the contract buying from the county, state, and so on.
Are you talking about the radios or the scheduling program?
The scheduling and then the video recording, they're all proprietary.
This is what I would suggest, because this is something, quite frankly, that the police have done their research. We are accepting their recommendations. I think if there are questions before the transaction takes place, I think we should ask the police chief to be here and discuss that with him for the July
Okay.
meeting.
All right.
For the scheduling
So
program.
do you mean we take
Is
them
that
out?
for tonight?
We take them
What's
out
on
then?
for tonight, I have been going back and forth with the chief and Susan. Proprietary purchasing under New Jersey state purchasing laws is extremely limited. And the software and computers is what is used throughout the county, throughout the state. To try to seek another vendor, they would have to put in a completely new
That's
system.
not-
It would cost more, but the scheduling software and the computers, that is what is used across New Jersey.
All right, because if that's what it's fine with me. The way it's stated in it shows
It
as a
has-
proprietary,
yeah.
and that's what basically brought my concern.
Because since it's
If he
so-
wants to come and say, no, it's not a proprietary, it's the standard, then I
Because
have
the way
no
purchasing
objection.
works, you go out to bid, you solicit quotes, and if there are certain categories where if there's only one vendor, a resolution has to be worded that way, so that way it's not flagged by the state or the auditor.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm
I did a
going
lot
to
of
defer to
research.
Lizette, because Lizette, as the borough clerk, worked in conjunction with Susan
Okay,
as the
good.
QPA.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Next.
All right. We're happy to report that the 2017 Community Development Block Grant Program seems to be back on track. We received notification that there is a meeting scheduled for July 11th to speak about allocations. I expect that we will be okay because our allocation is not huge, but as I indicated before, the requests outweigh the amount of money that's available by hundreds of thousands. So I'll be able to give you an update at the July meeting. Fireworks and summer concerts donations. This number keeps growing. We're now over $27,000. This has been one of our best
So we can
years.
have fireworks in your backyard
And we've
too.
really expanded the number and the type of donors. We're even getting many donors from outside of Tenafly, so
They wanna do
it's
business
been a
with
banner
Any from
year.
Cresskill?
I think we have some from Cresskill, right?
They want to
What's
do
that?
business. They want to do
The
business.
donors-
with
Cresskill people
Well,
who
we
watch our
donors, well, we
fireworks.
have King. Well, yes, we.
Good.
Once again, I'll send a bill to the mayor of Cresskill, but he's never yet responded.
And in our newsletter, as you know, we do thank all of the donors individually. And then you have your list of events, and that's basically it.
One more question
Sure.
for you, the communication. we're gonna have two communication systems, one for the police and one for the fire department. Most departments are trying to have either common radio with two frequencies or something like that, so they can go back and forth between the systems so they can coordinate. Do we know if something like that happens with our systems or not?
They can speak with each other now, but they have different forms of communication. Police communicate differently than fire at a fire scene, and that's why.
But does the
they
radio have
different
two
systems.
frequencies? So if I'm at a fire as a policeman and I need to communicate with the fire trucks, do I have a way to do that?
No, it would not be the every radio. What you have at the fire department, and Councilman Barzalato, please feel free, is that you have a communications station, and so it's not everybody who's communicating with police. They would only be designated individuals, such as the chief or the assistant chief, and they would have the capability to communicate.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Thanks.
Okay. I have one other thing.
I learned a lot about this process
Yes.
through this study.
I received an email today. I'll read it. It's very simple. Dear Mayor and Council members, and this is from Tenafly Honda, Norman Dorff. We kindly request an additional 6-month variance to park vehicles on 123 Dean Drive. That's the Stancatos restaurant. Their time has expired. Honda of Tenafly is currently renting the property from Mr. Lee, who owns the property. The extra parking is helpful. It also helps the landlord. Your approval would be greatly appreciated. Anybody have any issues with this?
I'm fine with it.
As long as it keeps the sidewalk open.
Yeah, they were supposed to park at a certain distance.
Exactly, he's doing that, so.
Okay.
How long is the extension?
6 months.
First time we've done this, or the second?
No, I think we've done it before.
Third or fourth.
No, this is the first extent.
I'd like to think that at some point in time that property will be sold, but so far, no luck.
Or maybe both.
So, unless anybody else has anything, I'll entertain a motion to close the time.
What about correspondence, Mayor?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Tom, on December 27th will be.
Mark is
There's-
patiently waiting.
There's two pieces of correspondence. The first one is from Mrs. Blatt regarding a person who was one of the co-presidents of the soccer league who died suddenly and unexpectedly at a very young age.
Oh, dear.
To name the soccer cage after him. Keep in mind that this was the organization that donated some money for the soccer cage. My suggestion would be, if the council agrees to do this, before we go any further, maybe Lisette could write a letter to the widow asking if the family would like this. Maybe the family doesn't want it done, so I would be hesitant to do this without the
Family's
approval
permission.
of the family.
Yeah, it makes
But
sense.
and is just so we understand, this gentleman who was a vice president of when you said that they donated, there was somebody else that donated most of the
Tenafly
funds.
United.
No, it's Tenafly United that donated the large amount of money.
And he was part of the Tenafly United.
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to be, if there was another donor,
No, no.
to
No,
be.
the soccer community is behind this, so
That was the
there's no
group.
problem with
Okay,
that. I just want to make sure that the
Family
family
is okay with it.
is okay with it.
They
That's
want to
all.
put up a sign at the facility?
I would assume that would be how you would do it. Give the people something to aim at, I guess, that soccer players. Anyway, we have a letter from Mr. Feldman. I would suggest, since I'm sure that Mark is going to want to speak at public meeting on this subject, that we allow Mark to speak now, if he promises not to speak on the same subject once we get in the room. Because, I want to hit this issue now once. So if you have anything to discuss about this letter,
I've made my case in the letter. What I want is your reaction.
okay.
Okay, so Mark, just summarize one more time, because a lot of people have different views. If I understand, what you are saying is that in the application, there were some specific items that were not properly done, like the engineer report and the marking of the trees that are healthy or sick. That was the big issue, correct?
there were some, in my opinion, based on the documents I was able to obtain,
Yeah.
some deficiencies in the tree permit approval. I also know that under the ordinance that if anyone objects to a decision about a tree removal permit, that you have only X days to file that, which have long since passed. So neither I nor anyone else is in a position to file a formal objection. But I do think some of the points I've raised and deserve consideration from a policy point of view, not only because there still remain 140 trees on that specific property that are going to be the subject of future tree removal permits when the houses are fully designed, but because this whole incident raises issues for the planning board, for the tree ordinance, etc., going forward. So I'm interested in simply knowing whether any of you or the majority of you consider that what actually happened in this McKay case raises issues for you, and if so, do you want to, or should we do something about it, not only for the phase 2 of the McKay property itself, but for the future? And I think the Environmental Commission has a role to play here too, and I'm a little surprised why they haven't been involved in this larger issue of tree replacement. So it's a multifaceted question I'm posing.
Well, I would say, first of all, I was under the weather for a good period of the time when this came about, and Mark was acting mayor, and Mark handled it exactly the way I would, in that he gathered together our professionals, and you tell them what.
Yeah, so everyone has the benefit of the understanding how this played out. Mark had sent an email to several of us raising the issue of whether more trees were being cut down than were supposed to be cut down, and were all the proper permits in place, etc., etc. So I called, once I saw the email, I called or emailed Bob Culver, I don't remember which one, and explained the situation and Mark's concern, and I asked him to check up at the site, see if everything was in order. And he went up to the site, we talked about it, he said everything was in order, that there were some trees marked that would have been on the individual lots that were marked for removal, but he had previous conversations with the developer/builder to make sure he didn't take those trees down, and that the only trees that were allowed to be coming down were trees in the roadway, directly adjacent to the roadway, where the root systems are affected by the roadway itself, and there's a large drainage swale up there. Those are the only trees that are allowed to come down right now. And the developer, who just so everyone's aware, got that 10-lot subdivision without any variances because he met all the requirements. And the developer understands and knows that he has to get individual building permits for each house and individual tree removal permits for each of the 10 lots as they ask for the permits. Now, we've got about $16,500 in mitigation money Tenafly has to mitigate for the trees, for the roadway only. Plus, I checked with Val, and there is about a bond of about $850,000 to make sure all the road and improvements are done correctly, of which Tenafly holds about $80,000 in cash. So there are plenty of resources from this developer to make sure he does everything the way he's supposed to do. And then Mark and I had further communications, and I went to the building department. I looked at the permits myself. I talked to the ladies in the building department, and everything certainly appeared to be in order. They had applied for the permits. Mark raised some questions about whether the trees were marked as healthy or not. Maybe we could have done a little better work there. I'm not clear how that exactly should have played out, but the trees were the trees that were affected by the road. I went up with Bob to the site. We took the site plan up there, so I got to see for myself what was going on. And after that, I asked Bob to have the borough engineer go up to make sure the builder was doing what he was supposed to do and not doing anything he wasn't supposed to do. That's in terms of that. In terms of the policy issues going forward, that's a whole separate conversation. But it certainly seems that what the builder is doing now, he's following the rules. The question is whether someone wants to change the rules for the future, we can have that conversation.
Thank you.
Is that-
Okay. That concludes correspondence. Any questions on the resolutions?
Just on the consent agenda, if I want to ask a question about the expenditures, do I do that now? Or
Yeah, well, it would be one of the resolutions.
The bill list?
the bill list?
Oh, the bill list. Yeah, do it. If you want, do it now.
Can you explain the $150,000 for Mrs. Rosemary Arnold?
Yes, that is the final payment in the Aaron Pirelli settlement,
And how much was the total settlement?
$400,000.
Which we agreed to that. You missed the meeting, I think, Tom.
That's the name of the individual that Tony mentioned. That's the attorney, correct?
That's the attorney. It goes to the
We'll
attorney's
probably keep
office.
most of that money.
From Portland.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the work session.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll see everybody inside. Want to take a 5-minute break?
Please, Mayor.
So what?
Good evening once again. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the notice requirements have been satisfied. Meeting dates for the year are confirmed at the annual meeting, are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center, and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Copies of all revised or additional meeting notices are sent via fax to the Record, Suburbanite, and Northern Valley Press, and are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center. Salute to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Barzalato? Here. Councilmember Bash?
Here.
Councilmember Hayter?
Here.
Councilmember Park?
Here.
Councilmember Zina?
Here.
Mayor Rustin?
Here. I'll entertain a motion to approve the following sets of minutes. June 13th, the work session, the regular meeting, and the closed session. Motion, please.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Revisions to the agenda?
We have done.
Okay. Public comments, anybody care to speak?
Johanna Gambro, Ravine Road. I wanted to speak about the artificial turf and the tire crumbs that are often in that artificial turf. That was an issue a while ago, and it was discussed extensively on TV, on radio, because the females who are in the cage are on the ground a lot, and they were ingesting the tire crumbs. And one of them, I think she lives in Connecticut, got cancer from that. So it was a big story. So I actually went down to the field, collected the tire crumbs, and you can send them to the Environmental Commission in the state of New Jersey. They will examine them. And something else came up in my life, and I wasn't able to follow through on that. But it's absolutely mandatory that before anything goes on a field, that you can't assume anything, you can't expect that it's already been tested and it's in some report you can find somewhere. These are people, and we need to make absolutely sure that it's been tested and that it does not cause cancer. I'm adamant about that.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak? Please.
My name is Martin Gilbert. I live at 12 Leonard Avenue in Tenafly. I'm a member of the Tenafly Garden Club, among other things. And I'm here to just reiterate how disappointed we are with Mr. Culvert as our DPW person. Mr. Mayor, we had met over a year ago about repairing the greenhouse. Absolutely nothing has been done. In February, the heating system in the greenhouse went out. I had told Joe Rossi it was out. It was never fixed, and as you know, in March we had a really cold snap where everything in the greenhouse was killed, and the plumbing system broke again because it froze. Now, Joe Rossi and Bob Culvert had said to me, well, I made sure that Joe Rossi had all of the paperwork to contact the people that made the products that are in the greenhouse. And Joe Rossi said to me, well, why don't you take care of it all? And I mean, I'm not qualified to do that. I can't call in a heating contractor and have the heating system replaced unless you want authorize me to spend $5,000 or $2,000 or whatever it is. And the skylights, the motors in the skylights that open when the greenhouse gets too hot have not been working for years now. Norman from GPH, I guess, electrical contractors, had looked at them, and he said he had spoken to the company. They were going to send him some new motors. It's never happened. I mean, that's a big problem for the greenhouse when nothing works. Also, the Davis Johnson Park is a disgrace to Tenafly. It is loaded with weeds. We had planted in one section a monarch butterfly garden, which as the spring came, it was weed whacked by people who Mr. Culvert said were hired to do that. But they were hired to whack weeds on the upper tiers, and those tiers are still all full of weeds. So the garden there was destroyed. Bulbs that we've planted have been destroyed. One of your members, who's not here today, recently came out with a book, Tenafly in Modern Times. He has pictures of the garden looking absolutely beautiful from the 70s when it was taken care of properly. And this 2001 Hagstrom Atlas of Bergen, Passaic, and Rockland counties, on the third page of the atlas, it has a picture of the rose garden in Davis Johnson Park, when this used to be written up in all of the garden books in New Jersey as places to visit. Now it's just a bunch of knockout roses that are not trimmed, not pruned, not maintained. The Tenafly Garden Club is a 501c3. We raise money to do things that benefit gardens and parks in Tenafly. I had spoken to Bob Culvert about buying 2 trees and having them planted. There used to be a red-flowered horse chestnut in the oval that was taken out, I guess about a year or so ago, by a car. We wanted to replace that.
You said oval, where's the oval? You mean the one right opposite the post office?
Right, yes.
Okay, all right, so you're out of Davis Johnson Park now?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And also we wanted to plant a tree in Davis Johnson Park. And I had said I would be interested in planting a Princeton elm because they're resistant to Dutch elm disease. And he said, well, he would rather a Kentucky coffee tree, which is a lovely tree. And I agreed that, you know, if he would get us a price, we would do that. Well, he's never gotten back. I called up saying that I wanted to drop checks off for the 2 trees months ago because we wanted it done, and he's never returned calls. I mean, I don't understand what goes on with him, to be truthful. He seems to be vindictive because the butterfly garden was obviously something that we were taking care of, whereas the weeds were not. and that was destroyed. So I just wanted to say that, and I think, I mean, all along, where the tree committee has not met in over 2.5 years, he's planted trees that are considered invasive trees that we would not really plant, like Crimson King Norway maples. I'm just so disappointed in what Tenafly is becoming, and he's not a help.
Okay, we'll speak with Mr. Culvert. Maybe I'll see about arranging a meeting to see we can discuss some of these issues that you brought up.
Okay.
All right. I know I was privy to a meeting about the greenhouse. I believe you were there as well.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry that things have not worked out as well. I'm disappointed what you tell me about your monarch butterfly garden. Certainly, the greenhouse has never been in the shape that I've wanted it to be in. So we'll give it a higher priority. And Jewel, maybe we'll talk with Bob and see what's going on.
Well, we have been talking. I mean, I can give you a more detailed report. I will talk to Bob about the specifics of the greenhouse. However, I mean, keep in mind what's been going on in the last 24 months. Number one, we've replaced the gazebo in the park. We're now putting in the ADA ramp. We're putting in the bollards to improve the lighting. We were notified probably about 18 months ago that we were going to be receiving a significant amount of money specifically for the gardens. So there was no need for us to allocate taxpayer dollars when we were awaiting a bequest for that. We did receive the check, but obviously that is the next stage. So we have over $100,000 that we received to restore the gardens. Plus, Mr. Culvert is overseeing the construction of a new public works building.
Well, I understand that, but look, nobody wants a new gazebo more than myself or the Ballards, but
the implication that there's nothing going on.
Well, no,
totally
that's
false.
not what I heard. What I heard is that the greenhouse has not been repaired, and Bob did promise me 2 years ago at that meeting that things would be taken care of. I don't like to see the garden club lose whatever they lost in the garden, in the greenhouse, due to the fact that there was no heat. And I don't know what the story is with the monarch butterfly garden, but I want to hear his side of it. We'll get some answers and then we'll get together.
But Mayor, it's not, listen, we have to be, and Jewel, I concur with what you're saying, but if you go around the borough of Tenafly, it's deplorable. The parks are horrible. Sunnyside, Davis Johnson, there are weeds everywhere. It's deplorable. It's not the way Tenafly used to be. I mean, you don't remember what Tenafly used to be. It used to be, people used to come to see our parks.
Piermont Road.
Horrible. Absolutely horrible.
Piermont Road is terrible. There are vines growing on everything, and half of the stuff is dead.
Well, he's not talking about the street. He's talking about.
No, I'm talking about forget the grass.
When I first moved here in 1969, there was a supervisor of parks. I remember one of them was John Van Vorst.
Correct.
I guess we'd no longer have that position. Nobody's really
Well, the head of the Parks Department has been out on disability for quite some time.
He's back July 1st.
Okay. Listen, nobody can be held more responsible than the mayor and council for the fact that the DPW is down significantly in manpower, not only because of budgetary reasons, but because we have people out on disability, long-term disability. It's a real problem.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll address your specific issues if we can. I will make it my business to talk to Bob.
That's all I can ask for. Thank
Okay.
you.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to disagree with my cohort here. Tenafly is not deplorable. Okay, can we do things better? We can always do things better.
I didn't say Tenafly was deplorable. I said Tenafly's parks and greenery it's horrible. Peter.
Well,
Come on,
I would disagree.
Let's not sugarcoat something that shouldn't be sugarcoated.
I'm not sugarcoating. I disagree with you. Are there areas that could be better? Yes, but I'm sorry. I'm down.
Have you been to Davis Johnson Park?
Yeah.
And
I drive through it a lot.
Is that acceptable to you, the way that looks? Just you don't even have to drive in. Just go down.
Well, I do drive. I drive through it on a regular basis, and I would, I'm not the expert that you are, and I probably.
I mean, that's another problem too. Is the police department doesn't ever seem to patrol there. because I was there one Sunday, and a father and a young son, about 9, were playing ball in there, which is not that's not a park for that.
That's true.
And I very nicely went over to them and I said, this is not a park for that. If you want to play ball, there's either Sunnyside Park or Roosevelt Commons. And he got really belligerent and said things to me that I will not give into the microphone. And I said, well, I'll call the police, and they will come and tell you that. I called the police, and the police never showed up. I was there for 45 minutes. They never showed up.
What was the date?
It was not this past summer, but the summer before.
Oh, the summer before.
Yeah, I mean, it was a while ago. I mean, it's...
All right, Martin, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
You want to speak?
Can I speak? Yeah.
Please.
Okay, I'm Vivian DeMarco. I'm the president of the Garden Club, the 4th time I've been president. I've just been re-elected again.
Congratulations, I think.
Thank you. And we really, our hearts are in that park. I mean, this is what we strive for. And last year, the Butterfly Garden, we went over to Metropolitan Plant and we spent close to $100 on native plants. We were very careful. Native milkweed, things that weren't invasive, Joe Pye weed, and Martin knows the others. And Martin actually planted it because I have something with my leg I can't get down at. And he took him almost 2 hours to plant this garden, and it looked beautiful. DPW man, who was there, Martin, that said they would water it?
Yeah.
One of the men said they would water the garden, and they knew we had it, so it was so nice. We'd visited last summer, and it was fine. Martin calls me about, what was it, a month and a half ago, and he said it was all weed whacked. I said, well, I'll go up to DPW that day. I live in Leonia, I don't live in Tenafly. I went up there and I spoke with Lynn, and Bob Colbert was there, and I explained to him the whole thing. He was very disinterested. He had a cup of coffee and he went, oh, really, really? I said, it's not really, funny in the way that we spend our time doing this and then we go to look at it, and this was the time the butterflies were going to be flying around. This is the time, and they're all down. So he said, oh, well, where did you get the plants? I said, oh, we bought them at Metropolitan. It was close to $100. It doesn't seem like a lot of money, but we fundraise, and that's what we do. We put, okay. He said, okay, I'll get right back to you. Now, that was a month and a half ago. I went to Lynn the next week. I said, I never got a phone call from him. She said, oh, let me write your number down. Up until this past week, I went again because I had to get information from my yearbook, and I said, Lynn, he never got back to me. What's going on? I mean, are they going to give us maybe a little bit of money to rebuy the plants or something? She goes, I don't know. I'll write your name down and your number. Still haven't heard from him. So that was that, and I really was very disappointed. That was the one thing. The next thing I want to say is I've been on the board of the Garden Club of New Jersey, since 1999. I've held different positions. I'm District 1 Director of 14 clubs.
Hello.
2 years ago, we were at a board meeting. We meet every month down at Holly House by Rutgers. And this woman raised her hand and she said, oh, you're from Tenafly, that's Davis Johnson. I said, yes. She says, well, listen to what happened to our club. They came from South Jersey. I don't know if it was Linwood, New Jersey. It was near Atlantic City. They had looked in one of the New Jersey garden books and seen Davis Johnson Park. Beautiful pictures. Hired a bus. They came up, and she said, what was wrong with your park? It didn't look anything. So I didn't know what to say. I said, well, what did you do? She said, well, we had the bus for the day, so then we wound up going to Presby Iris Gardens, which was in that time when Presby was in bloom. And I was very embarrassed because I said, well, oh, she said, but we were reading the book and we thought that would be a nice trip. Well, it really wasn't funny. I mean, I'm laughing about it now, but I mean, they had spent a whole day to come up and then that.
That's a shame.
It is a shame. And you know what's sad is that it's like if no one is going to help us, I mean, look at us. We try our best and then we planted bulbs and they're all whacked up. Oh, and Bob, you know what he told me? I asked him about, well, what happened with the weed whacker? He said, I'm going to tell you what it was. I said, what? He goes, they hired these kids for the summer and they give them weed whackers. They told them to weed whack the weeds. But the weeds on the second and third level are all there. They weed whacked our garden. I mean, and very upset over that. And one other thing, I did say that. I just want to thank you, though, for putting our article in your newsletter on the second page. I've gotten a lot of people saying, we're gonna have our first meeting September 11th, and it's gonna be a welcoming meeting for new members, but we really wanna straighten out this animosity that goes between us. Martin opens the windows in the greenhouse because it's so hot, they put the heat up, and the plants fry. They fried. I mean, it's sort of.
Well, we'll get to the bottom of this. I don't believe. I know Mr. Culvert for as long as he's worked here, and I don't believe that there's any animosity. Whether there's differences of opinion, I don't know, but we'll get to the bottom of it, and we'll. I don't think anybody at this table here is happy to have even a perception of a lack of communication and cooperation. You guys are volunteers, and we're very fortunate to have you. And Martin, we're going to try and resolve all this because you guys work too hard that you should feel that we're acting in a negative manner towards you.
And also, we just gave a $1,500 scholarship to Rutgers for 2 interns for the summer.
Good.
And we'll have Bruce Crawford at our first meeting, bringing them to Tenafly to tell us about what they did for the summer. And we're going to do it again. That's our scholarship, so.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, let's move on. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barzalato?
Yes.
Councilmember Bash?
Yes.
Councilmember Hader?
Yes.
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Councilmember Zina?
Yes.
Okay, we have an administration of an oath of office. Janet? Who's going to administer the oath? We have an attorney present here.
It's nice to meet you. I don't know, I've never met you before. I guess you're holding the Bible, right? Okay. Let's see, which is the best way?
Torch? There's no actual torch.
This way. It should be.
Cooler.
Raise your. Left hand on the Bible, right?
I said.
Raise your right hand.
And your right hand. Raise your wrong hand. Okay, repeat after me. I, Janet Rittenhour.
I, Janet
Rittenhour. Do solemnly swear. That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
Support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of New Jersey. And that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. And to the governments established in the United States. And in this state. Under the authority of the people. I will faithfully, impartially, and justly. You're not going to have me.
Sorry.
Perform all the duties of the office of tax assessor for the borough of Tenafly, according to the best of my ability.
This one, the record for the administrative assistant.
Congratulations. You can do all the work.
Well, I didn't know that who that was.
Maybe 2 copies there.
Carol, don't go anywhere. You're just going to have to get back up again.
Going tomorrow.
Thank you. Janet, get the appeals ready.
Thank you, Janet. And best of luck to you. We're really looking forward to working with you. Not that we have been working with you to this point, but it takes on a whole new level now.
Yeah.
We had a lunch for Carol last week, and I had the opportunity to say a few words, and I'm very tempted to say the exact same words again, but I'm tired. And I don't want to be accused of pandering, but Carol, your contributions to our community and to Borough Hall are too long to mention, and I think everybody, including Janet, are going to be surprised how big your shoes are to fill and how much, is expected of your office, because you've just...
Believe me, she's been with me 25 years.
Well, she's been trained by the best, but nevertheless, it's going to, you've taken on, you've never said no. You've done so much for so many people, so many departments. It's going to be a challenge for Janet, and I'm sure she's up to it because you've trained her well. But, it's going to be very hard to say goodbye to you. You're such a part of the fabric of our community, and especially here at Borough Hall. Everybody, and I mean everybody, just has come in contact with you, and to come in contact with you is to understand how smart you are and how knowledgeable you are about everything, and that pool of knowledge is what we're going to miss the most. And your personality, the fact that you're always ready to help. And
As I told the GIF board last month, that I was brought up to listen. And I think that's a very important trait. Let people say what they have to say and never say no. I've been taught that since I was a little girl. I'm one of 11, and that was my lifestyle, and it worked for me. So I've been very
well, it
fortunate.
worked for us, Carol, and we really are appreciative of all that you've done, and we wish you nothing but good health and happiness in your new life.
A new life right up in the country.
Out in the sticks.
See how long I last, okay?
Well, it'll be a challenge, but you've always handled challenges very well. Is there anybody else at the table that would like to
I
say
just want to
something?
add something, Mayor. I mentioned this to Carol, but I would like the entire council to know. I went to take my GIF, the seminar we have to do for the insurance thing, and it was up in Wyckoff. I think I missed all the other dates, so I was there. So we all introduced ourselves, and at the end of the seminar, the person who was conducting it, once he heard I was from Tenafly, made a point of coming up to me and saying, "You have the best." I said, "I know it." He was talking about Carol. He said, "She's the best." I said, "You don't have to tell me that." But I just wanted to share that we really were lucky to have Carol working for us in Tenafly.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to, as somebody who's been here a long time.
Long time, right? We
And,
go way back, Tony.
You are, as the mayor said, truly a fabric of what Tenafly is all about. And I personally will miss you immensely, not just you, your family, what you've done for the borough of Tenafly, what your family has done for the borough of Tenafly. I know there's one man upstairs looking down that is the happiest guy in the world.
He was. He's
And,
unbelievable. And thanks to him, that
yeah,
kept me going here.
absolutely.
He was really well behind me through everything.
Well, we can't thank you enough,
Great
truly. And we're going to miss you more than you can imagine. So thank you for everything. Thank you.
Thank you all. It's been my pleasure. Almost 29 years, well, it'll be 28 and a half years. Fun times for me. Thank you.
We just have some tokens of appreciation for you.
And they're heading up on the 29th, so this will be in the car. Not me, they are. This is for you.
Well done.
Okay.
Well done.
Okay. Public hearing. Dan, you want to read?
I have to read it to the record.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, the following ordinance published herewith was first read by title only on June 13, 2017, and posted on the bulletin board of the lobby of the Municipal Center, ordinance number 17-12, an ordinance authorizing the acquisition of Block 715, Lot 13, commonly known as 5 Serpentine Road in the Borough of Tenafly.
Dan? Oh, public comment on this ordinance? Dan, would you...
I move to pass and adopt on second and final reading ordinance 17-12, that notice of same shall be published according to law.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barzalato?
Yes.
Councilmember Bash?
Yes.
Councilmember Hayter?
Yes.
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Councilmember Zinn?
Yes.
Max, you want to...
Yep.
Want to introduce the next ordinance under new business, please?
All right, so I move to introduce and pass on first reading ordinance 17-13 and set the hearing for July 17, 2017 at 7:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter in the council chambers of the Tenafly Municipal Center.
A second, please?
Second.
Ordinance number 17-13, an ordinance to amend the title, salary, wage, or compensation of the employees of the Tenafly Administrative Employees Bargaining Unit for the calendar years 2017, 2018, and 2019. Councilmember Barzalato?
Yes.
Councilmember Bash?
Yes.
Councilmember Hader?
Yes.
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Councilmember Zino?
Yes.
I went out of order, so we'll do committee reports. Max, do you have anything?
Yeah, we do. I was last Monday at the senior center where the Senior Services Committee met, and I'm sorry, I was over there for the Senior Center Board of Trustee, and they wanted to proceed with that documents that I presented at the last meeting, basically that will have all the medication and medical conditions for the seniors if somebody from the ambulance or police comes in case of emergencies. So they're going to order 500 or so of those. They would like to talk to the ambulance corps to discuss where should they put the information for the ambulance people when they come to look for in case of the problem, because we discussed the fact that a label on the door might be an invitation or something like that. So they would like, if it's possible, to have that type of conversation on the fridge.
So we coordinate with something with Cheryl or Max.
Exactly.
We'll talk
We'll
about
say
it offline.
first thing when you get over there, look on the fridge on the right corner, something, and then they can take the stuff out. That was pretty much the action, and they want to thank everybody for all the good work that we're doing with the bus and the other people.
I think though, before they order it, we better get input from the ambulance and the police first, before we order 500 labels, and they may say, no, that's not what we want, that's not what we suggest,
Okay,
et cetera, et cetera.
we
Now,
talked to
seniors
them.
gonna want whatever they want, but
We talked to them about
first
it.
responders are gonna want it, right, Matt?
Yeah, we talked about that and said, well, we can't wait anymore. The process takes too long. Let's order those documents and we'll figure out
Process
what.
takes, call them on the phone and ask them, what process?
Okay, well, Tony.
Come on, Max, be
reporting
smart
on the,
about this.
Tony, I'm reporting on the committee.
Okay, so you can tell me they wasted 500, money for 500, come on,
I
Max.
was out of town, Mayor, so I asked
Well,
Max to
thank you for
substitute.
sitting in there, Max.
Oh, okay.
Any
You should have reported because Tony's gonna yell at
Any
you.
other committees?
I'm sorry, I have no committee
No?
report.
Okay. Tony, you have anything? Okay. Mark?
TVAC had their annual dinner a few weeks ago. They didn't do it on the boat this year. They did it in the restaurant. It was, for the record, it was delicious and a wonderful time was had by all. Second thing, the chamber wanted to remind everyone, it's dancing in the park every Wednesday now until the end of August, so it's there for you to enjoy.
Did you see the ad online? It was beautiful.
I did not see the ad online.
Very nice.
Where, online where?
Where?
Online?
On NorthJersey.com.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Okay, well,
That's it from me.
maybe I'll get to see the borough clerk dance in the park because they left the teabag dinner too soon. Oh, yes. Okay, let me finish with committee reports. Dan, anything?
I do
I'm
not.
finished with committee reports. Okay. We would like to recognize Sharon, if you don't mind coming up for a second. This is called the snowball effect. But, you know, Sharon, how many years you been here now?
8.
8? Is it 8 years already? And you've proved your value to us. You've stepped in a number of areas. Wherever we've needed assistance, you've provided it and done it in a very good manner, and we appreciate that. And now that Janet is moving up to the assessor's position, the assistant, is it deputy?
Assistant to the assessor.
Assistant to the assessor is open, and we're looking forward to you filling those shoes as well, as you've done all the other shoes. You must have a shoe collection.
I look forward to filling the shoes.
So we're very pleased. I think you and Janet are going to make a wonderful team.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck.
I had nothing to do with this, so go ahead.
And we'll recognize Val anyway. Hi, Val. Hi, Val. But all kidding aside, Val's another, look, we're so fortunate with our employees. Val's another person. When Dee left, I thought that the planning board was gonna go right down the drain, and Val, with not one hesitation, those were pretty big shoes to fill also, and the way you've come in and just taken over is just remarkable, and that needs to be recognized as well. You're doing such a great job with the planning board. I truly appreciate what you're doing, because it's not an easy group. We just,
You're all peaches. All peaches.
Well, thank you very much. And as I said last week at Carol's lunch party, one of the reasons I believe that our municipality works so well is our body of employees. And we just are fortunate to have the people that we have working for us. Nobody's perfect, but everybody works hard, puts their time in. By the way, when I come in here on Saturdays and Sundays to do my crossword puzzles, Carol was always one of the people I could count on seeing the light on in her office. So, Janet, don't make any plans for weekends. Do we have anything else? Do we have anything else before we adjourn?
I have a comment, and I need to, it's not gonna, I was trying to get to pay my taxes for the third and fourth quarter, and I was just told that we still don't have the numbers, and the taxes are due, the first ones, on August 1st. And I have to believe that because they're not ready, there'll be gonna be some sort of a additional time frame for paying the taxes.
We go through this every August because the county is always late.
Yeah, and I think that we should publish some sort of a...
We do.
Yeah, okay, all right,
Stop.
because we're not gonna have that time.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a pleasant evening. Thank you. Good luck, ladies.